And welcome back inside the High School T press box. We're doing our 910 football preview in this episode here. We're going to start in the Wilmington area. We got our guys from Wilmington, Tim Power from Coastal Preps, and Michael Cuneo from, what's your paper called again, Michael?
It's the Wilmington Star News.
Wilmington Star News. Okay. These guys are going to kind of battle it out here. A little bit of competition, I guess, but this will be good because we're going to get some different perspectives on stuff. And I'm curious to hear about what you guys are expecting this year, because it does seem like guys in the Carolina 6A, 7A, 8A that Hoggard has a pretty good stranglehold on this. What are your thoughts on Hoggard? And I guess the main thing that's happened with them is to change the offensive coordinator, because a lot of the top players are back. Just what are we thinking about Hoggard this year?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Hoggard's obviously the team to beat. They've got the best quarterback in the area by far. They've got just some incredible offensive linemen, defensive line as well. Their defense is really loaded. Every year they've got Marshall Chalk back again, of course. They've got so many good guys. Graham McNeely led them in sacks last year. Logan Petty was a guy defensively who had 4 sacks last year. You probably know him from the lacrosse scene, where he was, if not the best, one of the best face-off specialists in the state in the spring when Hoggard went to a state championship. So just an overall athlete. So they'll be great defensively. Offensively, they've got a lot of weapons. Wide receiver, of course, Devin Duran's really good. Micah Hunter and Matthew Boring at quarterback is just great.
Yeah, I mean, Hoggard.
It was a rare team last year that won by 2 games. It's rarely happened in football, so they won it by 2 full games. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, Hoggard is the class of the league. They have been the class of the league for a long time, and it's going to take something special for somebody to beat them this year. It's probably also going to take them not playing a very good game for somebody in the conference to beat them. But with the amount of experience that's back, I really don't see anybody beating them. They also added a incredible kicker in Cuneo McGee, who hit a 50-yarder at the Port City Jamboree on Friday night. So as if they needed any more weapons, right? Like they are so good offensively. Just about everybody back defensively. Let's just add a really incredible kicker to the mix as well. I heard he'll be doing punting duties as well. They didn't punt, so I didn't see him do that. But yeah, I mean, Hoggard, if not the favorite in the 4A East, probably right there again with Millbrook and Rollsville. Oh, sorry, 8A East. 8A East. I would say Millbrook, Rollsville, Hoggard again. Probably look like the teams to compete with.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a good year. What are your guys' thoughts on the play calling situation with Przitza going to Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take over. The head coach is taking over play calling duties. He's a defensive guy, so it will be a little bit interesting to see how that works out. I think a lot of the language will still be the same with so many players back. I think Coach Underwood's job is to just let his playmakers go out there and do the job. I don't think he has to get super creative. I think he just needs to kind of keep it simple and allow Matthew Boring just go out there and do the things that he's been doing for the last 3 years. I mean, I don't know that it's really going to be a big change for Hoggard. I think we're going to still see a lot of the same things. There'll be multiple. They'll throw the ball a lot, but they've also like to establish that run game, especially behind. I think they have 300-pound guys on the offensive line this year, so big offensive line. They're going to want to pound the ball out as well. But I don't think it'll be a tremendous change in what we've seen from the past.
Yeah,
when I was at practice, I was asking Coach Underwood the first week of practice, and he said offensively, they're still kind of trying to feel out what their identity is. But like Tim said, they have so many pieces. I have no worries about Hoggard's offense. Obviously, they like to do a lot of different things, and they get the ball spread out very well. And when you have so many playmakers, it's easier to do that. Matthew Boring is also pretty good on the run. He's led the team in rushing touchdowns last year, which I don't think everybody really knows. So those were mostly like kind of pounding it in from the goal line, but he's not afraid to get in there. So just in terms of running backs, it'll be interesting to see who kind of excels there. They usually don't have necessarily the best rushing stats when it comes to Hoggard, but they have kind of a unit. They lead by assembly. So yeah, no worries for me with Hoggard's offense.
I think we're going to learn a lot in week 1 with them at Richmond. That's going to be a fun game. Richmond's obviously a contender in 7A, historic program. So I think if there's any questions about Hoggard, we'll have them answered quickly here when they face a good team in week 1. But guys, Hoggard obviously is a cool team to follow, but I'm most fascinated by the rest of this Carolina Coast 6A, 7A, 8A. Just like, how is this going to shake out? Because there's so many different directions it could go. I don't have a clear favorite for second place. Do you guys have a clear favorite for that?
I think for me, it's Laney. I'm obviously with first-year head coaches, you never know how everything's going to go. So it's one of those things we got to wait and see. But Laney has a lot of good talent, especially at the skill positions. You look at running back, you look at wide receiver. They've got a quarterback who didn't really have much time on varsity last year. I think he only came in for a couple snaps, but had a really good JV year. So I think Laney has a lot of pieces that could make them very successful offensively. They have some small issues with depth in certain positions, so maybe that could be something that they want to work on. But it's hard to say. Obviously, you got New Hanover and Ashley as well, so those teams are kind of always right there as well. But for me, I'm pretty excited for Laney. Corey Hauser, obviously, a great coach, and they just have an energy, kind of buzz about them that they haven't necessarily, I feel, had in a little while. And obviously that's something you get with a new head coach. So I'm very interested to see how Laney kind of plays things out this year.
Yeah, same for me. It's Laney, and I'm pretty high on Laney this year. I think it's a pretty clear 1-2 in my book. I think it's Hoggard 1, Laney 2, and then put the other 5 in a hat and draw them out because I really have no idea how that shakes out. But yeah, Laney, too many skill position guys. Their wide receivers might be the best in the conference. Hoggard may not like me saying that, but I really like what they've got on the outside. If Joseph Stowe can get them the ball, which I watched him on Friday for the first time at the Jamboree, and he threw some great balls. I was really impressed with him. Yeah, they're really good outside, really good defensively as well. A lot of pieces back. Michael Barcy, their defensive coordinator, has stuck around under Corey Hauser. Corey was the defensive coordinator at New Hanover last year as well, so he'll have his hand on the defense as well. So not too worried about what the defense will look like. The only real question mark I have for them was at quarterback, and based on what I saw Friday night, I'm not really sure that's a question mark for me anymore. So yeah, I think Laney could be an 8 or a 9 win team this year.
Okay. So in terms of the rest of the conference, 3 schools with new head coaches, West Brunswick made a change where they promoted the defensive coordinator. Ashley, as you mentioned, hired Brzitza from Hoggard. And then Topsail gets a coach from the Charlotte area to come over and lead that program. What do you guys think of those hires? Do you think that each school kind of got it right this year?
Yeah, I think they all did really well. I mean, obviously with the 2 Wilmington guys, having guys from Wilmington that have been here, that have spent a lot of time, was obviously very big. Over at West, they're coming off, one of the better seasons they've had in a while. So they obviously, I think, wanted to kind of keep that flow. And Aaron has been there for quite a few years now and was promoted from within. So I think that was a good move. Topsail, I think, is one of the most intriguing teams this year because, as I said to TJ Albert, I was like, well, the the only place to go is up, right? When you go 0-10, there's not much. You literally can't get worse, right? But they have, I don't know, they just have an energy, and he has a certain confidence in what he did in the Charlotte area, and building a program and then having success there. And Topsail for a long time has had lots of numbers, lots of good talent, and they just kind of haven't put it together on the football field. I think it's been since 2018 or 19 that they've had a winning season. So, or been above 500, I should say. So it's kind of like, when is it going to happen in Hampstead? And there's a lot of promising stuff this season.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about 4 new coaches out of the 7 in the conference, and then you got John Fuller at New Hanover, who's only a second-year coach. So, the only 2 real veteran coaches in the conference, Craig Underwood at Hoggard and Brian Davis at North Brunswick. So, a lot of excitement with these programs that have new coaches, and we'll see how they do. I think like Mike said, the most intriguing hire to me is TJ Albert at Topsail. I mean, he has shown the ability to have success at the head coaching level. The other new head coaches are all coordinators. So we haven't seen them in the head coaching role yet. So we've got some question marks about what they're going to be able to do. Now, all really good coordinators, and all did a really good job with what they had at their previous schools. But having a coach that has already had some head coaching accolades and some success, I think is exactly what Topsail needed. That a lot of their players on third coach and third year, and that's difficult. But there are some pieces there, and then obviously with Coach Albert bringing in Zach and Kyle, his 2 sons, they're also going to make a big impact on Topsail. So I think Topsail's a really intriguing team. I think Ashley is a bit of an intriguing team as well. They should be really good defensively with a lot of pieces back. And now you got Adam Przitza, who came over from Hoggard as the offensive coordinator. Can he put his stamp on an offense that struggled at times this year? They lost some really close games, and I think the reason was because of the offense. Can he get that offense turned around? If he can, they could certainly be a top 3 or 4 team in this conference.
If I'm not mistaken, Tim, is Anthony Lombardi at North Brunswick now?
He is, yeah. So Coach Lombardi switched over to North Brunswick. He'll be the defensive coordinator under Coach Brian Davis this year. So Brian will be running the offense, Dante Lombardi running the defense. So that makes you've got two guys with head coaching experience on your staff. That's a big thing, I think, in North Brunswick. I don't know that Coach Davis really has had many people on his staff that have had head coaching experience. So I think it'll be nice for him to be able to kind of bounce some ideas, maybe off of Coach Lombardi, and those 2 can kind of work in sync to do some good things over there at North Brunswick. Athletes never going to be an issue over there. They always have good size on the line. For them last year, it was their defense was, I don't think Coach Davis would mind me saying this. It was bad. It was really bad. And Coach Lombardi understands that. He's got a lot of work to do. There were a lot of games that they should have won, but the defense couldn't get off the field ever. And so if they can shore that up, in my power rankings, I have them as the 3rd team in the conference. So they're the team I expect to go finish. Hoggard, Laney. I said I wasn't quite sure, but I went North Brunswick in that 3rd spot. That's how much I think of those 2 guys and their ability to coach football players.
So Davis has not had a large staff in any level, at North Brunswick, because it always seems like they've had some issues with staffing. So much less getting a guy that's a former head coach on there, it's going to be especially helpful. And by the way, watch out for that North Brunswick flag football team. I'm assuming Lombardi's going to be involved with that team. Maybe not, but if he is, then North Brunswick flag football is about to take off too. He'll
be the head coach of the flag football team. So
okay.
Doing double duties again, like he did at Ashley.
We'll take note of that for our flag football rankings in the preseason with him taking over that. He does a great job with that, with the flag football team. It's fun stuff to watch what he does there. Anyways, before we go off this conference, any bold predictions from either of you? Bold predictions.
So I think for me, just kind of along what we've already talked about, I think Topsail could have a much better year than a lot of people probably think about. In terms of specific bold, I wouldn't put a win number on it, but I think they'll have one of their better seasons in a while. And then I think it's not very bold to say Hoggard's going to do well, but I think Laney will do very well, as we already mentioned. So those are kind of like my main things.
I'll go bold here. I'm gonna go. Kyle Albert leads the conference in rushing. Topsail freshman. Topsail freshman running back leads the conference in rushing. I'll go. Hoggard goes undefeated in the regular season again, and makes the East Final again. I'm not going to say if they're going to beat Millbrook in the East Final or not, but they're going to be undefeated when they get to that game. I'll give Topsail 5 wins, and like I said, I think Laney. I think they're a 9-win team.
We're not going to let Tim back on here. You're stealing my take. So enjoy your last appearance here. We're going to jump over to Southeastern 3A, 4A, 5A. So South Brunswick kind of moves down right from that big conference to this conference and made some good progress, in their first year. An opportunity. They ended up with a 3-way tie for first place and wins the conference. So we have South Brunswick, South Columbus, White Bull, Red Springs, West Bladen. Do we think that South Brunswick has another chance to win the conference this year?
Yeah, I mean, South Brunswick had one of their best seasons in a long time, and part of that became because their quarterback Jaden Daniels last year was really connecting with some of those receivers. That they obviously won't have him, so they'll be looking for kind of that answer at quarterback. So that's a question if that will work out for them. They still have a lot of good players though. Edward Young is a great receiver. Last year they got to a playoff game. They hosted it. Me and Tim were there. They should have won it. So they should have been an 8-win team last year. So a lot of confidence for them to kind of look forward. Obviously, I don't know if the conference title is in the works, but they have enough pieces to have another good year.
Yeah, I'm not quite as high on South Brunswick this year. I think they're gonna struggle a little bit. Freshman quarterback Helen Granger is going to take over for Jaden Daniels, and playing a freshman quarterback is always tough sledding. I think in high school football, you'll get kind of those outliers, that can do the job, but it's a tough job for a freshman to come in and take over. But yeah, they do have a really good wide receiver core. Edward Young might be the most talented receiver in this area. Amarius Revels ran for over 1,400 yards last year. But I'm afraid that teams are going to stack the box and really try to take him away and make South Brunswick go over the top. And, we'll see if they're able to do that or not. Defense lost a lot of pieces too last year. So, I think 7 wins to get to that level again is going to be really difficult. I feel like they're probably more of a 3 or 4 win team this year. That conference is not easy. Whiteville, to me, pretty much the clear favorite. They're going to be year in and year out until I can see that, they have a down season, which doesn't ever seem to happen. JP Price just does such a good job over there. And I think South Columbus is a team that could surprise some people this year. I think they've got, some good athletes over there and could have a good season. So, I think South Brunswick kind of middle of the pack, in my opinion, in the Southeastern Conference.
Michael, I know you don't see these other teams as much as your teams closer to you, but do you have your own thoughts on the White Bull, South Columbus, Spring Farmers playing?
Yeah, I haven't been doing a ton of research on them, so nothing crazy.
That's fair. That's totally fair. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to take White Bull to win this conference just because it's so hard to pick against them. I know that they had some players, but nothing last year to bring back in their side. So it'll be interesting to see how South Brunswick does in year 2. And it's still a much better opportunity for them in this conference than the other conference, I think. So we'll see how things develop for them. I do want to pop over to the East Coast 3A, 4A, our third conference here. So we have this conference coming off a 10-2 season. We're expecting another good year out of Pender. What can you guys tell me about Pender this year?
Yeah, I like Pender a lot. I think, a lot of pieces back, including their quarterback, which in that system is huge. You have an experienced quarterback that knows how to read whether or not to pitch the ball, to keep the ball. That's a big thing. So Austin Deal being back is a huge key for the success of Pender. Jaheim Lamb is a good kid that will rush for a lot of yards. Zeke Williams, another name that will do really well for them. So, and these are all kids that are going to see time on both sides of the ball as well. So, Pender with what they've got numbers wise, they've got to have guys that can go both ways, and they seem to find guys that can do that really well. So. I'm excited about Pender this year. East Duplin always really difficult, of course, in that conference. So for me, I think it kind of comes down to those two teams, and I think that'll be a great game. I got to see East Duplin on Friday night at the Jamboree. Of course, they were playing Hoggard, so it's kind of hard to gauge like how good are they going to be. But I did like what I saw. Just from a physical standpoint and a size standpoint, I think they've got some good looking athletes and some good looking kids. So I think Pender, East Duplin in that conference, the class of the league.
There's not many teams that are bringing back 3,500 yards of rushing production like Pender is.
Right.
It's just that's not common. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think pretty much all the same stuff. Pender coming off the season that they had last year, I believe was a program record. They went like 8 or 9-0 to start the season, or something like that, 7 or 8 wins. And they just had a ton of production. And one of the things when you go out there and you talk with Coach Tom Ains every year is like, how many people are going to show up, right? They've had years where it's hard to get 30 guys on the varsity roster. I don't think it's going to be an issue for them. They've had so much success, and all of these guys returning, and the formula is down there, right? And so they know what they're doing, and that system is designed, to run, and then run some more. We all know that. So Zeke Williams is a guy that's obviously productive for them at running back. Jaheim Lamb, like Tim mentioned, Austin Deal at quarterback. Actually, I think threw a pretty good amount of passes, maybe like 47 passes for them last year. So that was a big, he can throw the ball as well. So Pender, they're gonna keep doing what they do, and I think they have a good chance this year.
Any notes on Trask this year? They're coming off kind of a down year. I think there's a coach this year as well. What can you tell me about that? Yeah,
so Trask has a new coach in Rance Creech. Last year they had Ty Lovett, who came over from Topsail. They had, kind of an underperforming year, top season for first-year head coach, and so Lovett is now back on staff at Topsail, coaching the offensive linemen. He's there with Albert, and then they've got Rance Creech. So, a couple returning running backs that have some potential. It's always hard to say with a first-year coach in that situation what things look like, but hopefully some stability. They've been kind of going through some coaches here, so.
They might have possibly the best lineman in this area in Gio Driggers, who's an ECU commit.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say maybe they have the best prospect in the area in Gio Driggers, who's really, look, we've had Trask has had, maybe not the success, but look at what they've sent to the next level. Sent some kids to, send a kid to Virginia Tech. Now we're going to send a kid to ECU. So maybe don't have, the depth and the numbers that a lot of these other schools in the area have, but they are able to develop the 1 or 2 really good players every year. I really like their running back, Tyreek Moore. I think he's a special kid. And, was going to get the ball a lot this year. Kamaje Wilson is, another kid. As a sophomore, had a really great season running the ball. For some reason, I don't know why they didn't give him the ball a bunch last year. That's a big question mark for me. they played him more on defense last year than actually giving him the ball. But I think he's a really good running back too. So I think they've got two really good backs that they can kind of, run behind. I would imagine everything's going to go behind Gio Driggers, right? Like you'd be smart to run behind a guy like him. So if I'm Coach Creech, that's what I'm doing. I'm pounding the rock behind my big guy, and see if we can maybe outscore some teams, because I don't know depth wise that they have a defense that's going to shut down a lot of teams. So I think in order for them to win some games, they're probably going to need to score 35, 42 points, something like that, to kind of outscore some teams.
Makes sense to me. Well, guys, I think that's about all the teams in y'all's area. Unless we're missing anybody. Did we miss anybody? I think we got everybody. Yeah, okay. Well, Michael and Tim, I really appreciate the time, and thanks for joining us. And before we go, where can people find you guys and find your work at?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm Wilmington Star News. If you just search Star News Varsity, that will take you right to our page where you can see all our content on social media. It's the same thing, Star News Varsity on Twitter and Facebook. On Instagram, it's just Star News Sports. And then if you want to see stuff on TikTok, some interesting interviews after games and stuff like that, I have a page there, which is just my name.
Yep, and I'm obviously Coastal Preps on all social media platforms. I'll do Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I have not ventured into the TikTok world yet.
Neither of us.
Maybe at some point, but so far I have not ventured into that world yet. But yeah, just Coastal Preps on any of the social media platforms. You'll be able to find my stuff.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate it, and best luck to you as we get going here in the football season. We'll be hearing from you throughout the year. Next up, we're going to go a little bit north and talk to Chris Miller from the Jacksonville Daily News. All right. Thank you to Michael and Tim again for previewing the Wilmington area of the 910. We're going to go up a little bit north here to talk to Chris Miller from the Jacksonville Daily News. He's based out of Jacksonville, of course, runs all the sports coverage at that paper. Chris, before we get going here, where can people find you and find your work at?
I appreciate people going on our website, jdnews.com, and we'll have feature stories and photo galleries and plenty more feature stories on, and of course recaps from Friday night's games as well. So definitely give us a check out if you can.
I'll tell you guys, this guy grinds. He absolutely grinds. He's got stuff every day, and he does a good job. So give him some love on his site there and help him out and read his stories. He does a great job there. And the good thing is he has some good teams to cover. So, namely Jacksonville, which is obviously the school that most people think about when you hear about Jacksonville. Of course, the school called Jacksonville. Coming off a really good season, Chris, 12-1 overall. They won the Big Carolina 6A, 7A conference. They're a threat in the 6A classification. They were picked again by the coaches to win that conference over J.H. Rose. Give us the whole rundown of Jacksonville this year, and do you think we're expecting something similar to last year, maybe a little worse, or maybe even a little better than last year?
Well, if you talk to the Jacksonville Cardinal players and the coaches, they're very excited. One of the players came up to me, and of course, all in fun, and nobody took it personal. But one of the players came up to me and said, "Hey, yeah, we saw that you picked us to lose against Northside this year and go 7-2. We're going to prove you wrong." So, like I said, it was all in fun. Nobody, got all mad about it, but it did maybe a little bit of a fire under their belly. So, I expect a lot of good things for the Cardinals. On paper, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year when they went 12-1. Won the outright conference title for the first time since 1990, and finished undefeated in the regular season for the first time since they won a state title in '82. So now they only play 9 games. This is the sixth or 7th year that they've only played one less regular season game than everybody else. They just can't complete that schedule for some oddball reason. But I think Jacksonville's going to get better throughout the season. So you may see their scores, let's say Friday night against West Carteret, and they may win 42-21 because they're experimenting different things. They're maybe not showing all their defensive looks. They're not showing all their offensive formations. They're going to wait till kind of later in the season when they play the Rose and New Berns and teams like that to kind of show all their cards. So I think they're going to get better throughout the year. They do have Amari Pearson come back at their star running back who rushed for about 1,400 yards last year and close to 30 touchdowns. They do have quite a few different players coming back. Saron Thompson as their wide receiver. He's been a little bit banged up during the preseason, but he'll make a full recovery here in the next few weeks. And then they got Squirrel Rogers, who I just did a story on a couple weeks ago, who's going to likely go play at A&T this year. And then they got the gentleman that is going to go play DJ Williams. He's going to go. Got an offer from Ohio State not too long ago, among other major Division I colleges. So they do have some talent coming back. I'm going to be very interested to see how they do. But I think right now, early on, they're maybe a small step behind where they were last year.
Okay, and where do you think that difference is coming from? Because when I look at the profile of the team, I see Amari Pearson, nearly 2,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. Saron Thompson, by far the leading receiver. There is a different quarterback. I see you mentioned Dominic Williams, the cornerback, who has just skyrocketed in terms of recruitment. And by the way, I took note of this guy early. By the way, people, I found him on Huddle. I was watching the tape before he had any offers. Okay, we had him down as one of the best players in the state, and all the colleges copied us. So no, he's an outstanding player. So where's the difference, if I may ask, from last year to this year, to where you're thinking it might be just a tiny bit step back?
Well, and a side note on Dominic Williams, we all call him DJ. He's gonna be a junior, and like I said, he got plenty of scholarship opportunities, Ohio State, and among many others. But he's
up in the top 100 now.
I'm sorry.
He's up in the top 100 prospects.
Yep, top 100. Yep. But when I talked to him a few weeks ago about these scholarship opportunities, it's not that he took him in stride, but he doesn't want to get big-headed. He doesn't want to get complacent. He was one of those kids who gave really good mature answers about this only continues to motivate me because I don't want to let people down. I want to continue to work hard. So, congratulations to this young man and his family for having that mind, having that right mindset. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do, not this year, but next year and then the following year. But as far as Jacksonville, I think they're going to be a little bit of a step, take a little bit of a step back right at this moment because quarterback. We don't really know who's going to be the starting quarterback. They have a couple candidates that they're very high on, but they haven't had that opportunity to show that in a game situation against the North Side, against a Newbern or a J.H. Rose. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that situation develops. But I also am a little concerned about Jacksonville's defense. They had a pretty stellar defense last year, senior-led defense. And other than DJ and then Sammy Rogers IV, a.k.a. Squirrel, they pretty much replace 8 defensive starters from a defense that was pretty good. So I'm a little concerned about that. Like I said, I think early in the season, combined with the Cardinals not showing their full deck, you may see some of their scores where they give up 23, 24 points the first few weeks of the season. But I think down the road, once they get into the playoffs, I think they'll definitely be a dangerous team going into November.
So I assume because you picked them 7-2, are you picking Rose to win the Big Carolina 6A, 7A?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Jacksonville was a unanimous pick to win the Big Carolina Conference by the coaches. I did have Jacksonville going 7-2, losing the North Side in week 2, and then losing to J.H. Rose in the conference play. So, but like I said, they're pretty fired up, and they predictions can. People have a lot of fun with predictions, so Jacksonville certainly had fun with my predictions.
Before we move off the Big Carolina 6A, 7A, you also have White Oak in this conference. Kind of a weird season last year, right, where they had a lot of success in non-conference, didn't win a game in conference, and then turned around and won a playoff game out on the road. So kind of a weird year. Where are you expecting out White Oak this year?
I have them kind of finishing about the same as they did last year. I have them struggling a little bit in week 1 on Friday against the North Side. Obviously, we'll talk about the Monarchs here in a few minutes, but I think this year is going to transpire pretty much similar to how it transpired last year. Maybe go 3-1, 4-1 in non-conference, lose all your conference games, and then maybe have a favorable opponent in the first round of the 6A playoffs. So if they could steal a conference win, I mean, obviously Jacksonville, New Bern, Rose is going to be pretty tough. But if they can steal one, maybe against South Central or something like that, then obviously they'll certainly take that. But I think this year is going to amount to how things went last year for the Vikings.
Similar to Jacksonville, they're looking for a quarterback. It seems like Josh Smith was a pretty good player for them. He was a dual threat guy where he threw for 1,400 yards and rushed for 1,400 yards and had 13 touchdowns on the ground. Do they have an answer at quarterback?
That's still kind of an up and air question. They had a couple guys that they were throwing into the mix, so we'll see that on Friday night. And but yeah, I mean, I can't underestimate the value that Josh Smith, not just as a quarterback and a ball carrier, but as a leader, an emotional leader, somebody that just kind of did the dirty work as a quarterback. And did dirty work, did the rebounding, did the steals, got all the steals on the basketball team. So just a workhorse, a young man that a lot of people respected, coaches, opponents, respected this young man. So it's the next quarterback has a lot of tough shoes to fill. So I'm very eager to see how the Vikings do with this new quarterback, and they're definitely going to have to play well, sustain drives, and limit their mistakes, the obvious to-dos to win a football game if they're going to be successful Friday against Northside.
Do you have a name from White Oak that people need to know about?
I mean, there's quite a few different players. I would say that there's probably not one guy that really rings a bell for White Oak. It's going to be definitely a team oriented attack for White Oak. I hate to mention one guy and leave somebody out, but they're definitely going to a lot of your guys that played role positions last year are going to have to really step up this year if White Oak is going to be competitive.
Gotcha. So let's go over to the Coastal 5A, 6A, and we also talked about this one a little bit on the 252 episode if anyone missed that. So a fun conference, right? We did a three-way tie for first place last year between Havelock, Croatan, and Northside Jacksonville. We consider Croatan and Havelock to be 252, just the way we do stuff. But Northside Jacksonville, Chris, outstanding year, finished 11-3, goes deep into the playoffs, ultimately lost a hunt. But a lot of the talent from that team is back this year, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, where you're thinking it might be your best team.
Yeah, I think on paper, Northside has what it takes to go and win a state 5A championship this season with the talent they have, the athletes they have at quarterback, running back, receiver, offensive line got better throughout the year. I think the key will be they're going to be able to throw the ball well. Like I said, they have some great receivers, and Gavin Davis, who's 5'8", little pipsqueak, but this dude plays with a lot of heart, and probably just plays harder than anybody else in this area. So he's already broken several school records, receiving records, yards, and receptions. You have 3J, Reginald Gray III at quarterback. He's only a junior. And then, you have Rely Anderson at running back, who he really had a great year last year, and got banged up a little bit toward the end, but came back in the playoffs and did well. So they got the pieces coming back that they think they can do some serious damage in the Coastal and then in the playoffs. So there's going to be a lot of hype. The players do know that this is the first year that Northside is the hunted and not the hunter. So I'm very interested to see how they respond to having that bullseye on their back this year, when in previous years they've been the one hunting the Havelocks, hunting the Jacksonvilles and the White Oaks. So I'm eager to see how they respond Friday night.
So if there is a reason why the team wouldn't achieve its potential, what do you think that would be, besides injuries, because that could be the case for any team? But is there an area on the roster you're most fascinated by to see how it improves?
Well, their skill position, like I said, is going to they're not going to be outmatched athletic wise throughout the year. They will need to establish, and they did a little bit of this last year, and it boded well for them. They do need to establish a very strong running game, especially in the cold come late October, and then in the playoffs in November, and potentially even early December when it's cold. That ball doesn't throw as well when it's Cole. So they're gonna have to really establish a good running game to take pressure off the quarterback position if they're gonna win a state championship. I think they have the capability and the potential to do it, but they're definitely gonna have to establish that running game throughout the season if they're gonna take that next step.
Awesome. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing what they do this year. And they have. I mean, 5A is obviously one of the teams in 5A. Some of the teams in 5A that are going to be competitive are in this conference, of course, being Havelock and Croatan. But generally speaking, it's a pretty open situation now because Hunt lost some guys from last year, so it's kind of open with what's going to happen. And certainly a team that has a chance to do something. So I'm very fascinated to track them this year. In terms of your other teams in this conference, Chris, we have Richlands, Dixon, and Swansboro, I believe. What are you making of these teams this year?
Well, of course, Dixon had a great year last year. They went 6-6, the most wins that they had in about 10 years or so, and then they earned their first playoff victory in football program history last year with a double overtime win, on the road last year. So, of course, my area player of the year, JJ Goulet, was the quarterback, but he operated out of that single wing offense, rushed for what seemed to be 8,000 yards, but and scored 50 touchdowns last year. Was I think he was one of y'all's players to watch out for last year as well. So just a great athlete. They got whoever replaces him has big shoes to fill. So I think that's going to be more of a by committee to replace what JJ did. But Dixon still, with that offense and the trouble it gives opponents, Dixon still thinks that it can be a dangerous team. To take the next step, though, they did give up a lot of points last year. They won a lot. They were in a lot of 50-40 type of games, 45-42 type of games. They're going to have to clean up some things defensively if they're going to take that next step and not just finish in the middle of the pack in the conference, but can they try to still win against Croatan or Northside or Havelock? I mean, they played Northside tough last year. Only lost by 4 to Croatan. Played Havelock tough for most of the game before they ran out of gas. So they're going to have to clean up some things defensively if they're going to take that next step and maybe finish second or third in the conference. Richlands, I know those kids are going to play hard. I just don't think offensively they'll have enough to be able to sustain a lot of wins. Same thing with I do have them finishing 2-8 this year, 3-7. Swansboro, I think they're going to have success in non-conference because they do have a pretty favorable non-conference schedule. But I think they're going to, when they get into conference play, if things are going to be a little bit more dicey. So believe it or not, people are going to give me a hard time and say I weaseled my way out of it. But I do have Croatan, Northside, and Havelock all finishing first in that conference again. I think Northside's going to beat Croatan. I think Croatan's going to beat Havelock, and I think Havelock's going to beat Northside. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Havelock. So word on the street, some off-record conversations I've had with the Rams, they think the Rams are back.
It's funny, you arrived at the same thing that we arrived at in our 252 episode, where we picked a 3-way tie as well in this conference. So.
And let's just say my predictions didn't make the Northside people happy, didn't make the Croatan people happy, and didn't make the Havelock Ram folks happy. So hey, I made everybody mad. So I think that's a win in my book.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you're never making people happy over there. All right, well, I think that about covers the first two conferences. I do want to also talk about the East Central 3-4A because you have East Duplin in this conference, and as well as South Onslow. What do you make of what's going on here this year? Is East Duplin still a favorite to you, or do you think maybe Pender might be able to get them this year?
Well, they did do the coaches poll a few weeks ago, and East Duplin was the clear and obvious favorite. In related news, water is wet. But Pender was number 2, and I finished number 2. And I did see Pender scrimmage against Richlands last week, and they have some size, defensive size, that will be able to hold their own and stop people. Pender offensively, they have some sparks, some positive bursts here and there. But I think Pender's defense is going to be their strength. We'll see how the Patriots do against East Duplin. But I think I think the Beulaville boys from East Duplin are going to be the clear favorite in that conference. I think Southwest will year two under Coach Zach Garvey. I think they're going to be a little bit better than this year. I have them finishing 5-5 and 3-2 in that conference. So and people are going to forget about Clinton. I mean, Clinton had a really down year a couple years ago. Took some big steps forward last year. So look, Clinton's always going to be Clinton, just like Wallace is always going to be Wallace, and East Duplin. So you can never count out the dark horses. They had that one bad year, and then I think they're still going to be a dangerous program.
I also wanted to borrow your thoughts from Wallace and James Keenan this year, if you know anything about those teams.
Yeah, not too much, but again, I mean, I do know East Duplin opens up at home against Wallace Hill. I mean, of course, last year, I don't know if you remember when East Duplin and Wallace clashed last year in the season opener in Teachie. You know what else was going on also at the same time at Duplin County? The Scotty McCreary concert. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
So luckily, they don't have to worry about a Scotty McCreary concert happening in Duplin County at the same time Wallace and East Duplin play. But look, those Duplin County teams, they are. We all know who they are. Wallace, James Keenan, and East Duplin, tough, hard-nosed kids with great families, and they're going to play slobberknocker football. So that I wish I was able to go to the East Duplin Wallace game to open up the season. But that's going to be a great game in Beulahville, and then East Duplin's got James Keenan a few weeks later. So in a tough stretch, because before that game they'll have Jacksonville. So East Duplin's, I think they're going to do well in the 4A playoffs and certainly in the conference.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the most fun counties in the state, just in terms of just football pedigree and what they do and how they bring it every year. So looking forward to seeing how things go for them. Yeah, East Duplin, they're the favorite until they're not, right? Until somebody beats them, it's going to be them as the favorite. So we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah. And speaking of East Duplin, they did end the season last year on a little bit of a bitter taste in their mouth. They their loss last year in the third round of the playoffs was their first home playoff loss in about 7 or 8 years or so. So that losing a playoff game at home doesn't really happen a lot in Beulahville. So that gave let's just say that playoff loss gave returning players a little bit of a nice big carrot in front of the horse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, an idea of like an angry East Duplin doesn't sound fun for the other teams.
So Battle does a great job. Battle Holly does a great job, and his staff. So I definitely get around to getting East Duplin later on. They got obviously Southwest Onslow in conference play. They'll travel to Jacksonville in non-conference play. So and then of course play Richland. So look forward to seeing Battle's boys down the road.
All right. Well, any other teams you didn't hit on? I think we about covered everybody in your area. Is there anyone else?
No, I think you talked about the Coastal 5A Conference. It's the North Side, Jacksonville. So I think we have some good football here in Onslow County. So I'm really excited. And I think teams like Dixon and Southwest and even White Oak are going to probably be a little bit better than people expected. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, Chris. Well, it is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for coming out here again to tell us about your teams. And again, where can people find your work at?
All right. Thanks a lot, my friend.
All right. We are back with James Moore from the Fayetteville Observer. He's going to help us with the Fayetteville teams here on High School T Press Box. First, before we get started, tell everyone where they can find you at, your socials and everything before I forget later in the video here.
You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, More with James, and also on Instagram, OG Cook _ and TikTok 910 Preps.
Awesome.
We post a lot of videos there, a lot of highlights, practice highlights, things of that nature.
You ready for the season?
I am. It's one of my favorite seasons of the year. Just the fall in general, you get a lot of stuff, fairs, but football, man. Yeah. Football is king.
What do you think was the biggest surprise last year in Fayetteville?
The biggest surprise, honestly, to me, the biggest surprise came in the off season. Everything during the season was exactly what I expected, but in the off season, Ty Phillips from Cape Fear was probably the biggest surprise, honestly, in the state, I would say.
Yeah, so Ty Phillips left Cape Fear. He was going to be one of the top returning running backs in the state. Yeah, that definitely changed some stuff up. And also the other big thing was Graham McLaurin leaving 71st for Hope
Yes.
County. That was the other big
Yes.
story as well. We'll start there. So we'll start with Hope County. We'll start with the Mid South. What do you think led Coach McLaurin to Hope County? Because he was at 71st for so long. He was so successful. Went to multiple deep playoff runs. They were just in the state championship game not too long ago. Why do you think he made that move?
Uh, well, I don't believe he's actually told me the exact reason why, but I think everything has a season.
Yeah.
I feel like everything. He was there 13 years. He had success. Didn't get a championship, but he's had success. He's had some failures, not too many, but he did his time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was just his time to move on. And next man up.
Yeah. Any idea what they're gonna look like in his first year there? They were 2-7 last year. Look, Hope County is a program that people always talk about as like they have a really high upside
Mm-hmm.
because the school's so big.
Mm-hmm.
It's so big and it's full of athletes and they're good in other sports. Like they've been pretty good at basketball for a while. So I'm curious if he's gonna be the guy that kind of gets Hope County to the potential. It might not be this year, but overall, I think he might get there. But what do you think this year?
I do believe he will find success in the future, but this year I've heard they have a lot of size. I'm going next week just to check them out. Just because I have a great rapport and relationship with Coach Max, so I want to go just to see what he's putting together. But he's all about discipline. Um, being disciplined on the field leads to winning, and he exudes discipline. He exudes success, winning, and he demands it. It's mandatory for him, and I feel like that's something that they will adopt just because they have the size, they have the talent. It's the only school in the county, so I feel like they'll be fine this year. I don't know if they'll be 71st,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they will be what 71st has always been known to be. But I
Yeah.
do feel like they will be this year of some sort.
Yeah, very fast develops here. So for the rest of the Mid-South Conference, obviously Richmond won the conference last year.
Mhm.
You also have Pinecrest in there. They're coming off an 8-3 season. Disappointing first round loss last year, I think it's fair to say, at home to the Chambers. Jack Britt, one of your teams, is in there. They had a 7-5 season last year. Then Overhills and Pine Forest kind of ran out the bottom of that conference, at least in terms of last year. Are you expecting the order to be pretty much the same this year with Richmond on top and Pinecrest there? Think Jack Britt might have a shot at it this year? What do you think?
I do feel like it will be similar to last year. Jack Britt will probably take a step back, but it will not be beneath Overhills and Pine Forest. And it's only just because they lost so much last year. They lost a lot of seniors. Javante Brooks, Gavin Stokes, Jaleel Parker, Quentin Liberty. I do believe just those names alone carried a lot of weight in the supporting cast. I mean, they had one of the best defenses, the biggest defense they've had. So
Mhm.
I do believe just because they are going to be so young, they do have a few core guys that have come up in the program over the years. But just because they're going to be so young, they don't have a starting quarterback yet. They're in a three quarterback battle. So, just having to choose between three guys who's going to lead your offense who are underclassmen that's a big deal to me. So, but I don't think they'll take a step back too far. Um, it definitely wouldn't be beneath Overhills and Pine Forest, but I do believe the conference would be the same.
Okay. So you're gonna take Richmond?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Richmond as well in this conference. I think look, they had some impressive players that graduated, but I think that they're pretty happy with the younger players coming up. I know that we left them off the way too early rankings back in December. They got all mad about it. So I know that they got some young players they're happy with. So I think Richmond's still probably team to beat in this conference. Interesting how Pinecrest responds though to that loss last year.
Yeah, it just look like they can't finish, and I feel like that's when it matters the most. Once you get to the end of conference and you have those last two games in October and you start going into November, and in my opinion, the goal is to make it to practice on Thanksgiving.
Right.
So once you make it to that point, I feel like that's when the success really starts to show itself. I mean, but you have to finish. You have to finish. First round is unacceptable for Pinecrest.
Yeah, I agree. We'll switch over to the Eastern Sandhills 5A 6A since we just talked about 71st and Coach McLaurin. So 71st won the conference last year, a 9-3 overall, 5-0 in the conference. Replacing him was Eric Hall, who was on the staff for a while. What are your impressions of Coach Hall and how things look over there?
Personally, I love Coach Hall. I feel like He's a defense first guy, obviously defensive coordinator over there for 10+ years. But what he brings isn't too much different from Coach Mack. Uh, I feel like just being that he's a guy who's worked under him for so long, he, I mean, he had success
Yeah.
in high school at Richmond.
Mhm.
He had success at Fayetteville State when he played. I mean, he knows how to win. He's probably one of the more defensive coaches, smartest defensive coaches in the 910 region, if
Yeah.
not in the state. So I feel like they'll be fine. What I would love to see, what I'm interested to see, just because Coach Mack ran the offense
Yeah.
at a high level. They still have similar offensive pieces in Monty Watson, Sean Pong, but I'm interested to see kind of how that firepower looks and if it is the same as it was when Coach Mack was at 71st.
You know who's calling the offense now?
Uh, Coach Tompkins.
Coach Tompkins. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say, I think regardless of play caller OC, Sean Pone, that's a guy that's going to have
Yes.
monster numbers this
Yes.
year.
It's a make or break year for him. I think he is a D1 talent.
Yep.
You can put him anywhere on the field, but I feel like if they can really be a big threat in the passing game, I feel like there will be a problem.
The other top player in 71st people know about is John Archer. He did to South Carolina, right?
Yes.
South Carolina. We saw him when he was a freshman that year that went to the state championship game, and he was doing stuff as a freshman that was pretty special. How have you seen him evolve? And now that he's a senior, how much of a dominating force do you think he's going to be?
Yeah, I talked to him last week, and I was just watching him practice. And one thing I really liked about him that I told Coach Hall is that he's just mature.
Mhm.
He's mature now. I feel like before, I feel like he was just this really big kid. I called him a big baby
Mhm.
because he had the baby face, he had the baby voice.
Yeah,
Like,
he did.
he was just a kid. Now he's a senior. He's committed. He's actually grown a little bit more. He's honestly he might be close to 6'7" now, and that's
Dang.
going to be a
Okay.
problem. He's put on more muscle. And one thing that he told me last week when I talked to him was just he's proud that he's been committed
Mhm.
like no other this summer. He practiced every day. He was in the weight room every single day. He worked on something different every single day. He just got better. So I feel like this is going to be a really big year for him. And every offensive line in the state that has 71st on the schedule should be afraid because
Yeah.
this is going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. He was so fun to watch as a freshman. He's just gotten better every single year
Mhm.
since then. So, yeah, I think. Are you in agreement? 71st still the favorite here despite the coaching change, or are you kind of? We have St. Paul's this year and Southview. I know has some transfers. St. Paul's and Southview were second and third last year. Just kind of give us where are you leaning?
I have not seen St. Paul's, but I have been told that they are disciplined and they have a lot of size up front.
Mm-hmm.
However, Southview, they look really good.
Okay.
I saw them practice. They have a quarterback now.
Yes.
Last year they had Jamal Brown. Jamal Brown was a really good quarterback for them, but that was his first year playing quarterback. He was a former offensive lineman. He just lost a lot of weight and was very athletic. So they kind of like a plug and play situation. But now they have Miles McCallum from Clinton,
Yep.
offensive player of the year, almost 2,000 yards passing, 22 touchdowns. When you have that and you have a star running back like Christian Simmons in the backfield, it's going to be a lot of defense to have a huge problem with both of them. So now, one thing Coach Brewington talked about when I spoke with him yesterday, Southview can really do anything in their playbook.
Yeah.
And it's a very balanced offense. They have tight ends, they have receivers, they have an experienced offensive line. So I feel like when you have an experienced offense like Southview and you have the great coaching behind it, I feel like you'll be fine. However, defensively, they're a little young.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it looks on the defensive side of the ball. But offensive wise, I do feel like they can average about 30 points a game.
Yeah. I did have it in my notes here. 9 returning stars on offense,
Mhm.
and plus a quarterback, right? So
Mhm.
it's really 10 returning stars. You count Miles from Clinton last year, then
Mhm.
just 4 on defense. So yeah, what you're saying makes sense. It's younger on defense, a lot of experience on offense. There could be some fun shootouts
Yeah,
they're involved
yeah,
with this year.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay. How about the other teams in this conference? So we also have Westover and East Smith and Postford. Everyone knows about the guy East Smith. We'll
Mhm.
talk about him a little bit. Castle Cruikshank. Is that
Cassell,
Cassell.
yeah,
Cruikshank.
Cassell, yeah.
Cassell. Okay. So Cassell Cruikshank
Mm-hmm.
is a 5-star prospect. He's going to be a junior this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about him and how much have you seen him, and just what's it like covering a 5-star every day, I guess.
He's a dog, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that's the best. He's very quiet. That's the best way
Okay.
to categorize him. He's very quiet. He's he's a lead by example type of guy. And honestly, I feel like if you were at practice at E. Smith, you would think he was a senior.
Okay.
You would think that, I mean, he's 6'6", a legit 6'6", long wingspan. And honestly, he models his game after Michael Parsons, and I see it a lot.
Okay.
I can see it. Honestly, him at the edge would be a problem. My biggest thing is, can that be enough to make Smith successful?
Yeah, that's the question. So 16 stars back from
Mm-hmm.
last year, including him. They were 3-8 last year. I do think if there's someone's gonna make a move up in this conference, it might be this one. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yes, I do feel like the problem will be with size up front
Okay.
offensively.
Okay.
They have a great quarterback, Nick Smith. I feel like a lot of people know him now just because of basketball season. Point guard for Smith made it to the regionals, but him at quarterback, making the right reads, being smart. He's only a junior as well. Those two, man, those are the biggest deals for Smith. But I really would love to see how Cassell's game translates, um, and affects everything else.
Right.
So
Yeah, just like gravity he's gonna have by himself because he's
yeah,
gonna attract multiple bodies from the other team every single
right.
snap. So just having him, no matter what he can do personally, just having him kind of creates issues everywhere
Yeah,
else.
it does create an issue, but to me, it's kind of like I believe in them as a team. I believe in Coach Tavell Williams, who's in his third year, but it's kind of like uh Miles Garrett when he was
Yeah,
with the
on the
Browns.
Browns.
You know,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
have a dynamic defensive lineman, but how far can that translate? You know, to win it, and you know how that went in Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah. Miles Garrett still put up the numbers though,
Yeah,
and
he
I expect
did,
he's still to
and
put up
that's
the numbers
exactly what
too.
I'm predicting. I feel
Yeah,
like Cassell will put up the numbers. I can see him having about 12 to 13 sacks
that'd be
this
good.
season.
That'd be good to have.
Probably about 100 tackles, but time will tell.
Okay. Before we get done with this conference here, any thoughts on Westover and Douglasburg?
Westover will be interesting because they have, to me, they have the quarterback. They have a great pocket passer and Eric Klein. But to me, I would love to see who they're throwing it
Hmm.
to. They have some guys defensively. Devin Walker, who's a top returning tackler, all conference guy. Um, but it's just not much there to move the needle because they lost so much.
Yeah.
And Douglas Bird, I feel like now in this day, in modern day, Bird is Bird.
Mm-hmm.
However, they do have a new coach, Joe Salas.
Yep.
He brought Franklinton back,
Yeah.
Hobson, South Johnston, and he's a he's a well-known guy who can turn around programs.
He knows what it looks like.
Yes, he knows what it looks like, and he knows what to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very that's needed for Bird right now. And one thing he told me when I spoke with him, just the turnaround, being the guy that knows how to turn around programs is addictive for him. So I would love to see what
Okay.
he does. I feel like the biggest problem for Bird is they don't really have the numbers. Now the numbers are better than they have been in past years, but 35 guys. But I mean, over the past couple of years, they've had like maybe 20, 25 guys on the roster. So now the numbers are getting better. So we'll see how he does with the talent that he has. But I'm not predicting them to really do much. Maybe win a game,
Mhm.
but that would be a plus for them.
Gotcha. We're gonna take a pause here. Joe's got something up. He was. We got something. Looks like. Yeah. Looks like the camera got frozen. Can't tell what it did. It was during the vote. Those.
Okay.
Looks good now. Do you know? Did it freeze up during the Westover answer or the Douglas Bird answer? Okay. Let's just run Douglas Bird back, and then
Okay.
I'll move into the last conference. That's okay. All right, so we go 3, 2, 1. And any thoughts on Douglas Bird this year? They have a new coach, Joe Salas.
Mm-hmm. Coach Joe Salas, he's interesting just because he's addicted to the turnaround process. That's one thing that he loves. He did it for Franklinton, Hobson, South Johnston. Went to a state championship with them in 2009. But I feel like for him, it's going to be the biggest issue that Bird has had over the years is putting up numbers, having guys come out to practice, and actually being dedicated to the process. A lot of guys, they just don't want the grind, man. They don't really. They want to hang with their friends, all that good stuff. Be a teenager, which I get. But at the end of the day, Bird is a storied program who has a lot of history that no one will forget. So I
Right.
feel like the best way is just to get kids to buy in. That's the best way to bring that program back that everyone knew in the early 2000s is to just get everybody to buy in and actually get some numbers in the practice.
They need some positive momentum because you're right. The history they have, I think if they got some things rolling in the right direction, I
Mhm.
think I think it could take off.
Yeah,
Really, I mean,
yeah.
they just need momentum.
Yeah,
So
I agree, and I feel like those kids need somebody to know they care.
yeah,
And I feel like I wouldn't say coaches don't act like they care, but I do feel like when they see a revolving door of coaches, that mean that especially when they leave voluntarily, that can kind of throw kids off mentally
yeah,
and
I agree.
emotionally.
I agree. Well, your last main conference we're using Tri County 6A 7A.
Mhm.
This is a fun one. So Cape Fear won it last year. They were 10-2. Scotland came in second place last year. They finished 4-1A and 4 overall. And Terry Stanford was in third. There was a three-way tie for the last place between Lumberton, Grays Creek, and Pernal Sweat. Um, I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on this one because this is one of the conferences where it could kind of go multiple ways, but I'm kind of thinking that you might agree with me that Scotland might be the favorite this year.
Yeah, I do believe Scotland is the favorite, but in my heart, I just cannot discount Coach Jake Thomas and what he does at Cape Fear.
Right.
I, they lost Ty Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
They lost Geronimo Sanchez. They lost the 910 Preps Defensive Player of the Year, Aiden Leonard. They lost a lot of guys, a lot of seniors, a lot of heavy hitters. Last year, that defense was real, to say the least. And they really pulled out that conference championship against Scotland last year. And I do believe that if they can buy into his coaching, now that I feel like they have a less talent than they've had over the last couple of years. But if they can buy in their coaching and really be disciplined and actually pay attention to their X's and O's, I feel like they'll be successful. But Scotland looks very good.
Yeah.
So I just don't know who has the firepower to match up with um their offense. I mean, Terry Sanford, they're a lot smaller. They lost a lot of firepower as well. But um yeah, Scotland, I do believe they'll have the conference. If if everything goes well, it could be I wouldn't say it'll be easy, but it'll be fairly easier than
Mhm.
past years.
Yeah. So the thing in Scotland this year is they bring back the quarterback.
Hmm.
They bring back a star running back, Mike McLean, who, as a freshman last year, rushed for 1,200 yards and 24 touchdowns. Not normal things for a freshman to be doing
No,
at the 6A level. And also their top two receivers are back on offense. So anytime you have a formula like that, you're going to be looking pretty good this year.
absolutely.
And yeah, so I think they're the clear favorite. They got guys back on defense as well.
Mhm.
I do want to get more into Terry Stanford because they last year I think they kind of went into it maybe expectations, maybe win the conference. They had a good senior quarterback in Jacob Moore. Had some good young players as well. Finished in third. what's kind of the outlook for them this year? Do you think they'll be about the same this year for them, or do you think might be a little bit of a step back? What are you thinking?
No. It'll be a bit of a step back. I just don't think last year I feel like was the year for them. Just because they had
Yeah.
so much, they were very experienced. They had Gavin Kraut, Jordan Browning. They had a lot of guys on the defensive line who had been playing 4 years. Isaiah Williams in the secondary. I just believe last year was it for them. Now that they've lost so much, I feel like they have really one key guy, and they have another guy who can step up and show that he can be a star. But Sebastian O'Keefe, I feel like he's one of the better receiving running backs in the area.
Mhm.
Um, him and Prince White at receiver. If I'm looking for Prince White to really step up this year, he kind of played in the background to the guys I mentioned before last year, just because of he was a sophomore, so he kind of watched and kind of got mental reps more than anything. But he also got playing time. So I feel like now this year is really took his time to step up. But Sebastian, I feel like is that
Yeah.
guy for Louis Sanford this year.
Yeah, last year Sebastian, as a sophomore, had over 1,000 yards from
Mhm.
scrimmage. He scored a little bit as well. Yeah, we know Sim is a freshman, and he looked pretty good then. And I think
Yes.
this year there's no one in front of him
Mhm.
in terms of seniors in front of him. I think his numbers this year are gonna be pretty good.
Absolutely.
Pretty.
Absolutely.
All right. Lumberton, Grace Creek, and Pearl Sweat. A couple of these teams are just outside your area.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on Grace Creek and Lumberton and Pearl Sweat?
I have not seen Lumberton or Sweat yet,
Okay.
but Pernell Sweat always has really big guys.
Yes. I don't know
They
what they
are
feed him
huge.
down
Yeah, I don't know either, but I do feel like that alone will keep them just I, I want to say in the mix. But Grays Creek, they also have some pretty big guys, but I feel like for them it's gonna be about discipline. And just really one thing I saw in practice for them is just keeping the main thing. And I feel like they really need to lock down on the fundamentals and it'll translate into the game. But I mean, I don't really see them being successful. They'll probably be in the same spot as last year just because they lost so much too.
there.
Uh Ezekiel Reed was big for them, and now they don't have a guy who can really tote the rock. Um, they have a senior quarterback who's been in the program for 4 years now, but I feel like that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So we're going with Colin here.
Hmm.
Okay. Do you have any other big takes for this year? Maybe about the teams you talked about, or maybe some teams in the area around them. Any other lasting takes before we go here?
Um, I cannot make a definitive prediction,
Okay.
but I do believe that if Southview can put together a great defense that can limit points. I don't feel like they'll keep points off the board. I don't think they'll shut anybody out. I don't think they'll be I don't think they'll be real big headhunters, but if they can keep points off the board and just honestly just simply score more than their opponent, I feel like they'll get 71st a run for their money. But right now, I'm still saying 71st will win the conference.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, 71st Colin and Southview. 6A generally is pretty much more open than
Mhm.
7A and 8A are in the East. So it could be one of these teams we're talking about,
Yeah.
in December. So we'll have to find out.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and also on the private side, I think Trinity Christian, I feel like they'll have another conference winning year
Okay.
this year. They look pretty good. I have a Braylon Howard is coming back. He was a freshman last year, put up really good numbers. Now he's coming back as a starting quarterback. They have the Donzo twins, Muhammad and Gonley,
Yep.
who are I want to say,
Heard they run up to 4.7. Is that true?
yeah, yeah, it's very much true. So I feel like those two on the defensive line, they're gonna be a real big problem for opposing teams. And also they have a transfer, Daniel Prince from Lee County,
Okay.
7 sacks last year, another big guy. Um, I mean they have a really beefed up defensive line, and you can't double team everybody. So it's gonna be a problem for quarterbacks just because they have to either double team Conley, Muhammad, ordained. So
Yeah, math doesn't really work on that.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. But I do feel like they'll win their conference this year again.
Okay. And look, so I mean, in Division Two, we did have High Point Christian last year. I ran away with them last year, but they were very senior heavy. So maybe Trinity Christian has a chance to get back on top of Division Two this year.
Yeah, that'll be good for them. That'll be good. That's a program that knows how to win and get there. So we'll see what Coach Webster can put together.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything. I think we did all your whole area. I appreciate you coming in today and tell us about your area. Again, where can people find you at?
You can follow me on Twitter or X at More with James and Instagram OGCook_ and TikTok 910 Preps.
All right, man. Appreciate it. And we'll be seeing you later this year.
No doubt, man. Thank you.
And now we're joined by Jonathan Bim of the Pilot newspaper to talk about his area, which is Moore County. Bim, how's it going? And first, where can people find you before I forget to ask you later?
Yeah, so I'm with the Pilot newspaper in Southern Pines. We cover all of Moore County. So it goes from our 3 high schools, public high schools are Northmore, Union Pines, and Pinecrest. And so have some smaller schools that play a little 8-man football. We're excited for a busy fall, especially adding in girls flag football. So we're cover everything across the county, all the sports. Looking forward to another fall season of action everywhere, it seems like.
Yeah. So part of the fun for you, I think, is your 3 schools are from 3 different conferences now. So you deal with the Carolina Pines 6A for Union Pines, the 4 Rivers 3A, 4A for Northmore, and the Mid-South 7A, 8A for Pinecrest. So we'll start with Pinecrest as the biggest school. You just saw everybody yesterday. What's the storyline for Pinecrest this year?
Yeah, so I was at the Moore County Kickoff Classic, the 4th rendition of that, which is at Pinecrest. Pinecrest was the host team. They came on last. They're coming off an 8-3 season, which most teams would take 8-3 every year. That was actually it's been the worst. No, I wouldn't say the worst season. It was the least productive season they've had under Coach Nick Ettins in his 4 years. He's entering his 5th year now. They went 8-3, 4-1 in the Mid-South Conference, lost to Richmond in it was a lopsided season finale, and then went in the first round of the playoffs, the 8A playoffs, and got beat by Vance or Chambers. Sorry. So then that was your. They're coming back with some offensive weapons, returning their all-conference quarterback, Najee Gillis. But then the defense, that front seven's looking really fierce. I saw them against Terry Sanford in their scrimmage a week and a half ago now. And I was like, okay, wasn't really impressed. And then saw them last night against Apex Friendship. Looked like a completely different team. I think what we saw was Gillis was able to get the ball out to a plethora of targets, really got in the open field and just ran with it. Coach Eden said, yeah, those guys made the plays, made it look really good. But he said the way he put it, Najee had to get the mail and put it in the mailbox. And he did that for them last night. And so I think we can expect that. He's a field general, not really a mobile guy. Did see him a couple times joke about he could have tuck and run a couple plays, but they weren't letting quarterbacks get hit last night. Right. So you got running backs like Dayton Knight, Tyler Johnson, and MJ McNair, who was the JV running back last year as a freshman. Saw some flashes from him that the future is bright in that running back room. All 3 of those guys are juniors or younger. So I think you're going to see a lot of talent out of that running back room. Behind the offensive line that's starting to fill a couple pieces, they've got a few returners, a few new places to fill in. But I think that offensive side with those weapons, because Nick Edens is going to love to run the football, short yardage situations. He's probably going to take Najee off the field and run a power wildcat formation kind of. So that's what you kind of expect from him. Last year they had Chris Najim, who was the conference offensive player of the year. He graduated, and now it's sort of there's a ton of talent that's there that can be possibly filling in those shoes. Najim, you got Eric Melton, Carlos McLaughlin out and receivers, and McLaughlin in the slot. He's really going to be someone. Carter Jackson. They've got a lot of guys that were just role guys in the past, and now it's juniors and seniors, and now it's their time to show up. But that defensive front seven I was talking about, I mean, you got guys like Brady Clemens, Zayden, and Sabian Marsh, they're going to be just a force to be reckoned with up front. They're basically juniors and seniors who have been 3 or 4 year starters on varsity already. So been familiar faces, and now they're going to be the guys that you're going to have to be hearing a lot from them, especially offensive coaches having a game plan for how they'll set up with that 3-man front. And then that linebacker group, which is Finn Morgan, Alex Mueller, and Wayman McAtee. I saw them fly to the ball better than in that last night's scrimmage than the first scrimmage. But they reminded me of like the linebacker group that Pinecrest had a couple years ago, which had Jaden Baptist, Jalen Morgan, some of these guys that were Shrine Bowl and East-West caliber players. I think they're comparable of that. So I think we'll see Pinecrest. I don't want to sort of say if it's going to be they're going to make it to a certain round this year, or I think right now they're sort of everybody's chasing Richmond in the Mid-South. And I think a sleeper in the conference is going to be Hope County. So that's where I'm going to sort of sit. I think Pinecrest is somewhere in that upper tier in the conference, and I think 8A, we'll see how they shake out there come November.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it, but the way last year ended for Pinecrest, the back-to-back losses to Richmond and then Chambers at home, game that they were favored in, it's probably not a good taste leaving in the mouth there. So have you sensed that there's kind of like are they more locked in this year after last year ended?
I think so. Even last night, Coach Edens had everybody circle around. He goes, "It starts now." He goes, "But y'all remember how this feeling last time we were kneeling down on this field under the Friday Night Lights? What happened? Well, we were coming off a loss to Chambers, and it was just they weren't content because that was obviously the one that got away from them. I think knowing that they sort of the first couple of years under Nick Edens, they had been a second round team. It's like, okay, so you get to the second round and lost. So now not making at least to the second round seemed like a sort of a shortcoming from the past. I think there's a lot of unfinished business. Guys like Najee Gillis, who's a 2-year, it will be his second year starting at quarterback. He's been a guy in the program. And like I said, those defensive, especially Brady Clemon, Finn Morgan, Wayman McAtee, these are guys that have been sort of waiting in the wings for their time, and now it's their chance. We'll see how it shakes out. I know they got Cleveland to start the season, so that's going to be a wake-up test. We'll see how next Friday goes for them. I think last year it was a sort of a neck-and-neck game for the first quarter and a half, and then Cleveland went out and trotted away. So we'll see how it pans out for them week one to sort of set the tone for what this year's going to look like.
So you mentioned Richmond and Hope County. I do want to get your thoughts on these two teams. So Hope County has a new coach in Jeremy McLaurin who came over from 71st. I'm curious about how it's going to go there. I think that eventually he will get them on the right track. I'm just not sure if it's going to happen, right away.
Yeah.
Unless you're hearing something about Hope County, let me know. And then also Richmond, you did get to see them at the Jamboree as well. I do want to get your thoughts on Richmond from your vantage point.
So I think what got me was last year Pinecrest played Hoke right before Richmond. So you can say it was a trap game, but I also talked with Coach Edens after the game, and he said that Hope County was loaded down with young talent. He coached the Junior Shrine Bowl a couple years prior, that year prior. So he saw a lot of those kids that were freshmen, sophomores, and he knew they were going to be talented coming back. And it was like you're talking about the running back. They have a kicker that can just boot the ball anywhere. A lot of guys on that defense that were underclassmen that are coming back. I think with Duran McLaurin coming in, that's going to they're going to have fresh vibes. I mean, everything's going to be really exciting with a new coach, and obviously one with his pedigree. So I think that young talent with that, I would be shocked if they turn a couple heads. They have a couple wins. There's games that you wouldn't think they'd be in because the situation they're in. Richmond, I think they're going to obviously got with that talented offense, what they had, they're just going to be plugging and play and try to see how the next generation looks. They looked pretty solid last night against Union Pines. I think Brian Till was talking to me about how his team was trying to caught up to game speed, playing against. They played Hunt at the high school OT scrimmage last weekend, and then they took on Richmond. So they were sort of trying to take it back by just game speed and everything. But I think Richmond did have the size up front. I know they've had some injuries that are going to have to overcome this offseason, but I think Richmond still is sort of the gold standard in this conference.
Elsewhere in this conference, we have Overhills at Harnett County. They replaced Kerry Bacon this offseason at head coach with Tyree Massey. They're coming off a 3-8 season. As far as the Fayetteville schools in this conference, we mentioned them when we were talking to James Moore earlier. So about covers this conference. We'll go over to Union Pines. You mentioned last week how they were in the high school T Jamboree against Hunt. We didn't get really a full game in there because of the weather, but they still looked pretty solid against a team that was just in a state championship game. What's the story of Union Pines this year? To me, the thing that I keep circling back to my head is, who is going to be like the game-changing star now that Hayne Tobias isn't there?
Yeah, so I think that's really going to be. I was looking at the defense is obviously going to be they were the they stole the show a lot last year with what they were able to do, how they were holding teams to shutouts, or they were probably one of the best scoring defenses in the state. But that young offense, I think this team's offense is going to catch people by surprise because they knew of, like you said, Hank Tobias, who was a do everything H-back, H-back punter, whatever you put him, he was going to touch the ball, he was going to turn to gold. But I think with Vida Blue at quarterback, he's a junior, he was a sophomore last year, watched the two seniors play ahead of him. I think he's got the skill set that Brian Till likes in a quarterback. He likes a little mobile, but one that can really has a pocket presence and then knows when to tuck and run, can run the RPO game. So I think with Vida at quarterback, looks really strong, athletic kid. He's going to be one. It's going to, obviously going to take some learning a little bit under the Friday night lights, but I think he's going to be one that we're going to be talking about a lot this year. Him and Adrian Colon, sort of that 1-2 punch right there in the backfield. It's either a give or a take for Vida or to Adrian. So I think that offense is going to have to run a lot through that RPO. Johnny Urquiza is back at wide receiver. But then there's a whole lot of guys that I think they're just program guys and they're ready for their moment. I think last night we saw some times where they were frustrated with Richmond's front seven, which is a front seven that Union Pines won't face this year. I don't think they'll see one until they get late in the playoffs. If they, that would probably be the only time. Obviously, they'll play Pinecrest in week 2, but in conference play and in 6A level, they won't see that kind of play for a while. So we'll see what they can bring on that offensive side. Obviously, I think they wanted the gauntlet. They wanted who they faced in the scrimmages to prepare them for what they're going to face. But the defense is reloaded. I wouldn't say reloaded because a lot of these guys didn't leave. They lost edge rusher Elijah Clayton, but I think a lot of those guys are back, especially in that linebacker group. Dylan Benedict, Josiah Sandler, Brody James. Those are 3 guys that were 85 plus tackles last season. And then you got a defensive line that's only going to get stronger. They've been all summer getting stronger, all season getting stronger. We got Duncan Ops, Christian Romine, 2 guys that are going to be all conference caliber players. And Damari Johnson in the secondary is one guy that he's just sneaky. He would come in big moments last season, just enough, and you got to respect him. And then this off season, he's just garnered a ton of attention from colleges. I think he's got a couple offers from some Division I schools in the offseason. I think he's really done what needs to be done to get him going to the next level. And I think other teams are starting to realize, hey, when you see one out there, you got to probably throw it away from them.
Last year, they were one of the rare teams to win a conference by 2 full games. That's hard to do in football.
Yeah,
they were 7-0 in conference play, and second place was South Johnson, Lee County at 5-2 apiece. What are you thinking of Union Pines and standings in the Carolina Pines this year? Are they still the favorite to you? Is there someone else in this conference you're looking at, whether it's Lee County or Harnett Central, or do you think that maybe Union Pines finishes maybe second or third this year?
I think it's Union Pines' conference to lose. Okay. I think that right now, when you saw it was South Johnson and Lee County were the 2 teams that tied for second place. And South Johnson obviously has some really good athletes, and I think a lot of them graduated. Lee County was just one of those things that I remember going to Sanford last year and thinking, okay, maybe this could be a closer game, and it was a blowout. It was 35-0. So I think that just shows the disparity from Union Pines to the rest of this conference last year. I think that when they went to South Johnson, that was early in conference play. I think it was a Monday night after it was raining. It was just a mucky, nasty game. So I think that was probably why the score was probably a little closer than if they would have played in week 9. It probably would have been a little more lopsided. But I think that Union Pines should be set. I'm going to say right now, they went 11-2 last year, 7-0 in conference, went to the third round. 11 wins in third round of the state playoffs is the best in school history. And Coach Till's third year, I think we should expect another 7-0 run through conference. We'll see, week 2 might as well be the only loss they have in the regular season again. I think it's sort of, we could see a mirror of last year's regular season finish for them. And then we'll see how the playoffs pan out. But I think right now it's their conference to run away with.
And I'll say that the 6A is pretty open. It's not like the 7A where you have like a very clear crop at the top. The 6A is kind of wide open this year in the East. So who knows? Some other notes on teams in this conference from the 910. Western Harnett as a new football coach. Brad Peffley came up from the middle school at Highland Middle School to be the Western Harnett varsity football coach. We've seen in some cases where if the middle school coach kind of goes up with the players, sometimes that leads to some good things because there's already a rapport there. So we'll see how Western Hard does this year.
Yeah, saw them last night against Northmore.
Okay.
So I was for them to have, they had Northmore outnumbered 2-1. Northmore had probably about 30 kids dressed out. I think Western Harnett had about probably close to 45, 50, maybe close to 60.
Okay.
I think it was probably neck and neck. I think maybe that just shows the level of competition both teams are on. I think that's, I would say if they were playing a regular season, that would have been a really good Friday night game. But I think, the Western Harnett obviously they're going to stick to their stuff. They stayed in a powerized formation and they tried to run the ball against Northmore, and Northmore was able to keep them in check except for one play where they broke free. But I think Western Harnett did have some. Obviously, you could tell there was a lot of younger guys out there. The pads were hanging on their shoulders a little heavier.
Okay.
So, but I think that man, I think we'll see what happens with the new coaching staff. I know Western Harnett's looking for a new change.
At Triton, they were 3-8 last year, but they returned 15 starters from that team last year. So we'll see what Coach Penny has in store. In Harnett Central, of course, Kobe Howard is back for his senior year. We're talking about a guy with nearly 5,000 passing yards in his career and over 50 passing touchdowns. So anytime you have a quarterback like that, it's going to be hard to beat them when he's a senior. So just some notes on the rest of the 910 teams in the Carolina Pines. I'm kind of with Bim here. I think the Union Pines is still the favorite here, and it's a pretty fun conference overall. It's a pretty high parity conference, I think. And so we'll see how it shakes out this year. Well, last up, Jonathan, we have Northmore, who you mentioned just briefly there. From their perspective, are you encouraged after seeing them last night?
Yeah, I think so. I told Coach Cruz, Andrew Cruz, who's the longest tenured coach in Moore County. He's entering his 8th season. They went 3-8 last year, didn't win the conference game. There's the smallest fish in that pond when you think about who they've got, especially when you consider the 3A teams that they're facing, like the Northwoods and the Eastern Randolphs. It's it's not really it's not what they've been used to in the past when you see what they were facing in like the when they were going to like the Burlington area. I think they're going to be tough. I mean, that's one of those things they had. I said 30. I think it might have been 27 that were in pads last night for them in the scrimmage. So low numbers. They're not going to have a JV team. But I think what whoever shows up on the field for Northmore is going to be tough. And that's the thing that Coach Andrew Cruz really want to get into the guys. So I think we'll see what happens. They're going to run the same offense. It's going to have some different looks maybe the quarterback's going to be the shotgun instead of under center, and they're going to run some jet or some power option or something like that, because it's not going to be the typical Northmore, because they feel like they need to have the open field to sort of move people around. Because if they're going to have guys running both ways, especially on the offensive defensive line, it's going to wear and tear a lot really quickly throughout the season. So got guys like Stryker Murray, Bryant Williams, and Blake Pennington back. So I think those are guys. Last night I saw them doing a little bit of everything. So that's when you're at a 3A, I would say 1A, but it's a 3A school, the old 1A size. It's going to you have to do a little bit of everything. I think even Pinecrest was doing that. Their coach Edens was telling me, like, they had guys they had 130 kids in the program, but they still were having quarterback or receivers and DBs cross training each other, just that way they had depth. I mean, it's one of those things we might be starting to see that more and more, even with numbers slowly declining a little bit, or just maybe programs wanting to make sure the guys are ready for the next level, or just preparing for themselves see who can be what at the new positions.
And Northmore is on the small side for a 3A school. They're not one of the higher 3A schools as well. I think there was an adjustment to that new conference for the Four Rivers 3A, 4A. There's some good programs in there, namely Eastern Randolph, which won that conference last year. Do you get the sense that they might have an opportunity to move the standings here now they're kind of used to these teams?
Who is that? Northmore?
Northmore.
I think, let's see, that last year they had 2 losses to Northwood and Jordan Matthews that were early on in the season in the conference play. They were closer games than the rest of them. I went to the last game of the regular season when they played at Southwestern Randolph, and it was, it was a closer game at halftime, but then Southwestern Randolph ran away with it. I think maybe a Jordan Matthews could be a game they could turn. Maybe Northwood. It just depends on how, especially, like I said, they got to stay healthy. That's the main thing. When you have such a thin roster, you got to make sure you keep everybody safe. It's 10 games is a long time to have 30 guys stay healthy. So that's going to be the priority for them. But I would say I can see them turning maybe 1 or 2 games, 2 games at the most, their way. But they got games like Thomasville, which was a non-conference game. lost. It was kind of close. I think they could maybe turn that around. But there was also a lot of games that were just lopsided, and that was just the way the conference sort of stacked up.
Yeah. Well, being that there's no more 9-0 teams in that conference, I think we're about done here for your Moore County hit here. Well,
Yeah.
Jonathan, I appreciate your time, and again, where can people find your work and find you at?
Yeah, so we're at the Pilot newspaper, and we print twice weekly and online daily. We got the Sidelines email newsletter that comes out. Find my X account, and I've got the link to subscribe to the email newsletter. We got a new look this year. We do a Stars of the Week vote that people get to vote, and we have a few things we look back in. Well, basically just a recap of the whole week. So if you sleep for a whole week and you want to catch up with what's going on, Saturday mornings we have everybody coming to their emails. They can check in their bed. So we're looking forward to another year in Moore County and across the state covering. It could be another great year.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you this year on our post-game show and reading your coverage as well. So
sounds good, Joel. Appreciate it.
And to wrap up our show here for the 910 preview for football in 2026, we have Chris Stiles from the Robinson here to talk about Robeson County. He's the editor-in-chief at Robinson, and he's, of course, still covers high school sports, high school football. We know him from when he was just back in the sports, when he's doing the sports editing stuff. But now he's the big man at the Robinson. Well, Coach Chris, gosh, it shows you how long of a day this has been. Chris, what are some of the biggest changes in the offseason in Robeson County? Because they're having some coaching changes.
Yeah, I was going to say changes is a good word to start on because
that's what I was thinking.
Programs, 3 head coaching changes. So Lumberton brings in Josh Sheridan, who was on the staff, is an alum of Lumberton High School, now becomes the head coach. Purnell Sweat brings in Lawrence Ches, who also a promoted assistant, but formerly a head coach elsewhere and has had some pretty good success. And then Fairmont brings in Reggie Bush, who was also a Lumberton assistant. And so, 3 of the 5 schools here with coaching changes. And then one of the other 2 is Red Springs, that has basically a whole new team after 20 graduations, 22, somewhere in there at a 4A school. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of roster turnover with that high of a graduating class. So, a lot of question marks. And then, of course, St. Paul's is the kind of perennial Pied Piper around here anyway, in Robeson County. I think they've been the winningest team in Robeson County. I think it's 6 straight seasons. And some of those years by quite a few wins over everybody else. So, including last year. But yeah, changes, and St. Paul's doesn't have question marks, so they're on as every team does in August. But yeah, a lot of moving parts as we prepare for the season here in Robeson County.
Tell me about the recent facility upgrade that happened there.
Yeah, St. Paul's. It's been this is really the second season that they're in their indoor multi-use facility, and it's got some turf on the inside, an area they can have indoor workouts, very nice weight room, locker rooms, etc., coaches' offices. But no, they've been very clear about it's for all sports, and other sports work out in those spaces as well. But obviously, it's a very important space for the football program. And Purnell Sweat has an identical facility as well.
Yeah. Yes, they do. Well, speaking of Purnell Sweat, let's talk about the 2 biggest schools. So Lumberton and Purnell Sweat. They're in the Tri-County 6A, 7A conference. Purnell Sweat's coming off a 3-8 year. Lumberton's coming off a 3-7 year. So kind of in a similar boat. But the conference, I mean, outside of Scotland and obviously Cape Fear had some key guys graduate. It's generally a pretty open conference, I would say. There might be potential for a team to sneak up and maybe get a 3rd place spot one year. Are you thinking that these 2 teams are on the cusp of making a breakout, or is it still going to be another year or so?
It's kind of we'll have to see. Like, I can kind of see both sides of it. Maybe if everything comes together, and especially at Sweat, and it's not to discount Lumberton, but with Lawrence Ches being a proven head coach, that gives them some bonus points here, so to speak. They've got kind of a blend of youth and experience at Sweat, where, I mean, they graduated quite a few, but they've got some key guys coming back as well. So yeah, that could be a situation where if everything comes together, perhaps they do take that step and move to, that third or fourth spot in the conference.
It's definitely possible. Any players from either of these two teams you want to mention here?
Yeah, Sweat. It kind of, so Lawrence Ches, when he's been successful elsewhere, kind of been ground and pound style largely. And Purnell Sweat, when they've been decent, has kind of done the same thing. So that might be a really good marriage potentially. And they've got a few backs, Richard Lyon, Nehemiah Harris, Caleb Locklear. It will be interesting to see kind of who emerges from that backfield as the leader. And then Coach Ches is high as well on wide receiver, Kirsten Hunt, Locklear. And then some strong offensive linemen that he's really high on as well. And then defensively, some of those same guys at times, anyway, as even at 7A, there's some 2A players. Malachi Jacobs is a strong linebacker for them, as is Nehemiah Harris. And then Hunt Locklear again as a DB, and then Nikolai Lambert had some interceptions for them a year ago as well. So those are some key guys there. And then over at Lumberton under Coach Sheridan, a lot of turnover on their offense. So some question marks there as who steps up. But Coach Sheridan seems to be comfortable with his offensive line, which that'd be huge if they can take a step forward in that unit and have better protection for the rest of their offense. Chase Bollinger and Jaquez Hayes, a couple key guys on the perimeter for them. And then Hayes as well at a defensive back position should be pretty key for the Pirates.
All right, let's go over to St. Paul's. And there might be an opportunity here for St. Paul's because in this Eastern St. Paul's 5A, 6A, you have 71st in that conference. But obviously, this offseason, there was a big change at 71st where Jordan McLaurin left 71st to go to Hope County to lead that program. The St. Paul's think they have an opportunity to win this conference outright this year?
Yeah, we'll have to see, how 71st is compared to what they've been in the past. St. Paul's is so, it's a cliche to say one game at a time, but they really believe it over there. And so, Coach Setzer, you say, what's your goals? It'll be beat Purnell Sweat. And then once we beat Purnell Sweat, we'll worry about beating Lumberton and then so on down the line. But, yeah, I think they definitely have a team that could compete for that conference title, especially their defense is going to be very, very strong. I think they averaged about 15, 16 a game allowed last year. And I would imagine should be stronger because very experienced defensive group. Antoine McCoy, of course, is the Georgia commit. But that defensive line is really good even beyond him. And seems like he's kind of rubbing off really well on those guys. Dallas Richardson's also getting some recruiting attention. And then some other guys in depth at defensive line. Good linebacking unit, Dantes Leach, Nate Norton, and then Wyatt Bullard was the Robeson County Underclassman of the Year at Lumberton last year, transferred over to St. Paul's. And some good DBs with Malachi Locklear, Malik McCoy, and Jameer Blue. So I would imagine their defense will be a good strength. They did lose some key players at skill positions on offense. Andrew Lowry, we'll see how he emerges at quarterback as the new starter. And then they've got, when I ask about running backs, Mike Setzer, the coach, named 5 guys that they think could have an impact at that position, especially Jay Sean Carter, and then Jaden Graham is another Lumberton transfer. And then at wideout, Malachi Locklear there as well, 2A player, as you'll see so often in 5A and below. So, and they really like their offensive line. So I think they can run the ball well and give the quarterback time to throw. So, yeah, definitely a team that conference championship could be in play, and then late November, if not even early December, could be in play once we get to the postseason.
It's going to be fascinating to see how they develop here in that 5A class because it's certainly one of the more open classes we have in the state. So we'll see how things go. We'll leave it here on the two teams in the Southeastern 3A, 4A, 5A. You have Red Springs and Fairmont. You mentioned these teams earlier, but just some final thoughts on them. What would make a a successful season for both of those programs to you this year?
Red Springs, and it's kind of an interesting question for them because it's a whole new team, more or less. I mean, they have a few guys back, of course, but and offensively, Nazir Blackman has been kind of a secondary option, and will now emerge as the starting running back, and probably going to have to be a workhorse for them. And then he's huge on the defensive side as well, linebacker, alongside Zay Taylor, Stephen McCadney, and then defensive end Myron Cooper had a great year last year as well. I think the D will probably be a little bit ahead of the offense, but what makes a successful season for them? That's an interesting question, because I mean it could be, they're so young, it could be a very large struggle for them at times, but then at the same time, like if they can use that to grow down the road, as those younger guys become older in a year or two, there may be seed planted this year that help down the road. So, let's say they go 2-8, 3-7, it could still be a productive year in that sense. And of course, they're going to do their best to have a better record than that. But just as a hypothetical, they could certainly lay the groundwork even as they perhaps struggle in the win column with a young team. And then Fairmont was winless 2 years ago, won one game last year. I think just improvement from that, and I think they're capable of winning, certainly more than one game. They have some experience on offense, Jamarian Brown at quarterback, some playmakers in Tariq Leggett, Kamari McNeil, and then Arian Powell transferred from Lumberton over to Fairmont. And offensive line play has always kind of been the question mark. In recent years, they have not lacked for athletes. It's just they haven't had protection. And I left out running back Jeremiah Morris as well, strong up-and-comer, a sophomore. And then some of the skill player guys I mentioned at receiver are going to be two-way players and be key at defensive back, along with Silas Gomez up front. And then Brandon Regan's a linebacker that transferred from Lumberton over to Fairmont, along with Austin Hall returning at Fairmont. So they've got some pieces. They've got perhaps the biggest question mark from the coaching standpoint of the three new head coaches, just because Josh Sheridan is a known commodity at Lumberton, has been on the staff for a while. Lawrence Ches has been a head coach. So Reggie Bush at Fairmont's going to be kind of the most uncertain of those three. But as I say, they've got some pieces. If it can come together, I think they have a chance to be more competitive than they've been the last couple of years.
All right. Well, I think that covers all five of your teams, Chris.
Yep.
I appreciate your time and thanks for coming on here and telling us about what you have going on there. And you enjoy your time as the news guy as well at the Robertsonian as well. And we'll be hearing from you if anything big happens this year on our post-game show. And looking forward to how you chronicle your teams this year, especially St. Paul's and what they can do. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah. And a quick plug for us, we've got a pigskin preview section coming out. It'll be in Saturday's newspaper.
Yeah.
So as you're looking for the results from week one, also got the preview section with rosters, preview stories, players to watch, schedules, the whole 9 yards. So no pun intended. So yeah, go pick up a copy if you're in Robeson County, or some of that content will be online as well.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it, time, and check out his stuff. He's gonna have a full coverage of everything going on there, and he's gonna have a good coverage from all that. And I have to get my hands on one of those picks and previews one day, because I like holding stuff in my hands too sometimes. So you'll just get a copy.
Yep.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks.